Hi, everyone, and welcome to Afternoon Equality. My name is Christy, and today I'm sitting down with Helen Jane Campbell, who is a business and a life coach, and she describes herself as an anchor for people. She what she does is she really holds space for you when you're trying to figure out how to break into a freelance lifestyle, or just trying to figure out like how to balance your work life and what it is to be authentically you. So I'm really excited to talk to her, especially now as we're kind of normalizing things again, and we're getting back into the swing of life basically after a pandemic. So let's get right into it. All right, and here we go. Hi.
Hello, so good to see you. So
Good to
it's
see
my
you.
my evening here. You've
Yeah,
probably
I was gonna say you're in the UK, right?
That's right. So I'm in Wales.
Oh, wow, okay. So I don't know that much about the UK. Can you tell me a little bit more about where you are, where you're from and all that?
Absolutely. So Wales, I grew up in Wales originally, and then I went up and lived in Manchester and London, obviously in England, and I came back to Wales about 4 or 5 years ago. And so it's very rural. I'm surrounded by fields and sheep and farming and craftspeople, and it rains a lot. It's very beautiful. We've got hills, mountains, rivers. It's gorgeous. Yeah, and it's on the west side of the UK.
Okay. No, it sounds lovely. Like I'm I think the closest thing we have out here is like going out into the desert. Like I
Hmm.
remember I remember going on like a getaway once where it was just this house in the desert, and we were just surrounded by like bushes and dirt essentially. That's about
Could
as
you
rural as I get.
could you see the stars?
Yes, no, that was the best part because like I live fairly close to the city now, so it's hard to see like at night. And it's like, it's partially smog, it's partially just like light contamination and things like that. But then like out there, it was like there was a hot tub outside, and so it was kind of perfect because you could like soak and then like actually like look up and see. You could see like the galaxy.
That's so dreamy. Hmm.
Like you could see I've never experienced that before. You could actually just see the Milky Way.
Wow. Yeah, it makes a difference, doesn't it? I think we feel a bit
Yeah.
more connected then when we can see all of that. Mhm.
Yeah. But did you come back to Wales to start your business, or how did you like, because you said you left and then you came back?
Yeah, it all kind of, so I'm in my 40s, and I think that, I loved when I was in my 20s, I loved running around the city and being that person that took, I used to work in PR, that took the journalists out for cocktails and just used to have so much fun and not very much sleep, lots of fun. And I think it does get to a time when maybe we reevaluate our priorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about, being able to see the stars and breathe the air, sometimes that priority starts to overtake being able to run around in high heels and drink martinis. So, I mean, I still enjoy doing that as well, but maybe the priority altered a little bit a few years ago. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you miss about living in the city?
uh, yes, I think this is probably going to sound really weird, but anonymity.
Oh, okay.
Cities are very anonymous.
Yes.
And I love, so before, everything is before COVID, isn't it? Or after COVID. So before COVID, then I was doing a little bit of traveling, and actually in more in your neighborhood. So I was in San Francisco, San Diego, Houston, like I was going all around, and then obviously I had to fly home. But I love sitting in a cafe in a city on my own and being anonymous. I find it really fun.
Oh, that's really interesting because like I feel like, I feel like a lot of people, what I hear is that they hate it feels lonely. Like you
Hmm.
kind of get that feeling lonely in a crowd.
Yeah, I think I like the contrast. So what I love here is I can walk out of my door and I will see someone I know every day. Just I literally can't go and buy a loaf of bread and not see someone I know. And I love that, and it's beautiful. And also having the opposite to that can be really soothing.
Okay, yeah, no, I totally get that. I love that. Because I've never thought of it that way, as just that, like, finding joy in the anonymity.
Mm,
Like,
hmm.
and I don't know if it's because, like, I'm from a smaller town, and so, like, I'm kind of, not that I'm chasing fame, but, like, you leave small towns and go to big cities to sort of, like, find what success is, like,
Yes,
among a bunch of other people, and that can be really overwhelming. And so
definitely.
I love this perspective of, like, like, it's, like, the different, like, kind of lens on it. I think I really love.
And do you ever have that idea that sometimes you have to go away to come home again? I think there's a lot of stories throughout history based on that idea that everything that we need and desire is at home, except we have to go away and then come back and find it, whether it's the Wizard of Oz or something a bit more kind of, one of these great sort of myths or legends. And I love sitting with my journal in a cafe, watching the world go by in a city I've never been to before. And I realized that actually all the elements of that, a lot of it was about checking in with myself. And I can do that. I can find that now. And I never used to know how to find that in my own environment.
I mean, yeah, like, especially with the idea of, like, leaving, coming home, I think, like, it's valuable to, like, leave and kind of expose yourself to, like, like, what the other side is, because, the grass is always greener mentality is like, you'll never know if you don't try.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, like, sometimes you do have to see, like, is the grass really greener, in order to realize, like, no, the grass here is perfectly fine. Like, the grass here is actually greener and I love it more.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. All of that. Hmm.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. But so, so you moved back, and then is that when you kind of started this whole freelance thing that you're doing, and you started coaching and whatever?
So kind of, yes. So it's yes and no. So I did, I always like this neat divide. It's completely coincidental, but I worked for other people for 10 years and then for myself for 10 years. And that just fits really nicely by accident. And the coaching part has come in because there are people who succeed in public relations throughout their whole lives, but there is a certain lifestyle associated with the kind of PR that I was doing, which is about being in bars at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was super fun. But I did that for 20 years end to end, and starting to find something which felt a bit more for me, sort of a bit more spiritual, a bit more nourishing, a bit more maybe authentic as well. With no disrespect, I loved PR and I was great at it and I really, really relished it. But that idea of constantly putting on the smile and telling everybody that this product was wonderful and so is that product and your new client was your new favorite thing, and really bringing that every day. And then
Yeah.
after 20 years going, who am I and what do I like? I have no idea. I don't even know what I like anymore, because everything I launched was my new favorite. And that was one of my skills, that I actually believed my own hype, which is why I was brilliant at it, because I didn't put on a face. I was like, right, okay, so I have a kung fu client, so I'm going to go and do a knife fighting class and learn kung fu.
Oh,
Or
wow.
I have, I have a beer client, so I'm going to go and learn how to brew beer, or whatever it was. I've done all of the things in order to connect with whatever it was I was promoting, to embody it. And that's exhausting.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, it sounds very interesting, and I think, like, it sounds like, it sounds a lot like how I function, like, normally. Like, I love experiences. Like, people talk about love languages. Like, my love language is quality time experiences. Like, you can give me the world, and, like, I will not value that nearly as much as, like, if we go and experience, like, an adventure together. And that's kind of
Yeah,
what it sounds like, where it's like you put yourself into this, where it's like, you are committing 100% to, like,
yeah,
not just pushing that this thing, yeah, you're promoting is interesting, but, like, actually, like, showing, like, no, like, this is really interesting, and this is
yeah,
why you, like, are personally connected to it now.
yes,
And it sounds, I don't know, glamorous is the right word, but, like, just, that being able to put yourself and experience all those things, like, all those new things, sounds amazing. Like, it sounds great. And but yes, you're right. Like, I can also see how it's very exhausting.
exhausting. And I love that that's your love language, those experiences, because that's going to make you a super fun person to be with. And also there's that real authenticity about it as well, that likewise sort of throwing yourself into it. So one of my love languages is sending people books. And I've moved to a town that is full of bookshops. So Hay-on-Wye, it's on the border between England and Wales. And it's famous as a book town, and it has an incredibly famous book festival. And we used to have, God rest his soul, we used to have a king of Hay, and it was his idea to create this book town and to bring all of these secondhand books from, I believe, from all over the world, and to ship them in when a lot of libraries started closing down sort of decades ago now. And so we have all these bookshops here, and at the same time, because of COVID, they're all shut. And so I've got to launch my book in the middle of a pandemic, surrounded by bookshops that are all closed. So that's the irony. But that's one of my love languages is to send people that I like books that I think they would enjoy.
That is so cute. You're actually my roommate. Oh my God, you should see our house. There are bookshelves everywhere. She is definitely she's a book hoarder. We have given away multiple, and in our neighborhood, actually, we have a lot of, they're called little free libraries.
Nice, yes.
And so people will put out they're like big mailboxes with glass doors, and you just you shove little books in there, or you shove books in there, and you can go around the neighborhood and just pick a book and leave a book and whatever. And so it's called Little Free Library, and it's I think there's an organization, and we've talked about getting one, but it's we have to build, I don't know, it's a whole thing, but it sounds like your town or your village. I don't know what you.
Yeah, so our town is kind of like the extension of the Little Free Library. I love that you have that there. That's brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's super cute, and I think it's a great way that we've been able to kind of connect with our neighbors. And it's always fun to see hey, what do these people have? What are there's one across the street that tends to have a lot of true crime books in it.
Intriguing.
And then there's one the other way that tends to have more children's books and things like that. And I don't know how intentional it is, but it's it's really fun to see what are our neighbors reading.
This is adorable. And I also wanted to pick up on your theme of your video series with the tea. So you were saying that you have a chocolate tea, and I have love tea here. I don't know if you can see that, which is
love it.
Herbal teas. It's got rose and lavender and chamomile. So I'm drinking the flowers.
Right, I love rose and lavender, actually. Those are some of my favorite flavors.
It's so soothing.
Yes, definitely. But okay, so let's talk about your book, because you mentioned it. I think it's great because your book could not have come at a better time, not just for me, but I think for a lot of people. Could you kind of describe what inspired you to write it and why it felt important to release it now? Because obviously we're still in a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always believed that whatever it is that you want to be known for, whether it's art or writing or music or making the most beautiful cakes, that you have to do the thing. There's so many people around us that would talk about doing the thing, but we're actually, you're a creator, and we do the thing, and we put the work out into the world, and that can feel scary, but doing that work is really important. Otherwise, anyone could go around and say, oh, I would be really great at this if only I actually did it. So I decided to start writing. I always said that I wanted to write a book since I was really tiny. And a couple of years ago, I started writing a blog post every week on LinkedIn for one. I thought, well, rather than creating my own platform, because that sounded like a lot of hard work, and then I would use one that already existed. And having freelanced by that point for quite a few years, I'd learned that the thing that most people wanted to know is, how do I win work? That was always the most popular topic. So I just started writing a blog post every week about how to win work as a freelancer, because I'd learned to be pretty good at it. From working in PR, you're pitching all the time. And that tendency that I described about really throwing myself into everything, I tended to win most of the pitches that I went for because I have that enthusiasm and energy. So first off, I don't tend to go for any pitches that I don't want to win. And then once I know I want to win them, I basically make myself the most interested and desirable person because I truly believe in it. So I will, whatever it is, and this is in the past because I don't do PR anymore, but I would order the product or visit the venue or just find out as much as I could about the company. I would never kind of go in cold. And so I started writing this blog about how to win work. And it became relatively popular by LinkedIn standards. And a few hundred people would read each section. You know, it's not like a mind-blowing stat, but a few hundred people would read each blog post. And after 30 weeks, which wasn't a deadline I'd set, it was just a random number, then I started to get these approaches from this particular publisher saying, could you put together what you've written into a book and we'd like to publish it? And I just thought it was spam. Because I was just like, surely that doesn't actually happen. Like, I know that you have to work quite hard to get a publishing deal and you have to pitch to people and all of this. So I just ignored it, put it in the spam box. And then another email came through from the same publisher, but a different person. I was like, yes, spam is so clever. They have all these people there with different names and job titles. And I still ignored it. And then eventually they were like, do you not want this book deal? And I was like, oh, it's real. So that happened. And then the hard work and the tears started because I had to write a book. But essentially, the themes about how to keep your momentum up, how to create a business of your own in the first place, how to win clients, how to all of these things that people came up against, I was addressing them. And so this publisher realized that there was an audience for that and this was before COVID was a thing. And freelancing in itself is a trend that is not going away, and working from home, and for all sorts of reasons it's become more possible because of technology, etc., etc. I think as a society we are a bit more understanding about people wanting some balance in their lives now than maybe we were 10, 20 years ago. So it felt like it all came at the right time, really.
Yeah, I think I don't know if this was a conversation we had, but we had talked about, work-life balance versus work-life blend.
Yes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I mean, like, especially, with 2020 and lockdown and pandemic and all these things that we as a human society has faced in the last year. Just, this idea of like you said, like, really reevaluating like what was important and just finding out like, what it is. Like, it's not so much about balancing it. It's like, how do you prioritize and find joy in the things you do? Because now it's like, I think we did talk about this, where it's like, and I mentioned to other people too, like how our spaces have had to become blended.
Yes.
We can no longer escape work because like work is at home, and we can't really like, whatever is at home, like, it's gonna blend into whatever we're working on, because like it's all just together and there's no way to avoid it. Like, I mean, like, my roommate and I, we have kind of partitioned the house. Like, so she actually has like a little office set up in our sunroom. And then I essentially have the living room set up as mine. And we kind of keep things out of our bedroom. So we kind of partitioned it in that way, but it's still like, we're still here.
Yes. And what you've just said there, I love that you've created that boundary where you keep the work out of the bedroom, because I interviewed a yoga teacher as part of the book. I interviewed experts in all different disciplines, and he was explaining that if you do bring your laptop into the bedroom and you think, well, I'll do a few work emails, but maybe one of those emails might be a difficult conversation, and then maybe you're bringing that difficult conversation into the space that you've allocated to be calm and soothed, and you don't necessarily want that conversation in that space. Equally, I interviewed an incredibly talented PR, Fiona Chow, who works in all sorts of things that I don't understand, like the blockchain, and she's super bright. And she's a single mum, and she said to her client, I think she was flying out to, I think it was Germany, but she was flying somewhere from the UK to somewhere in mainland Europe. And she said, look, I can come to the meeting, but my young son is going to come with me, and we're going to meet at the Science Museum. And so that was the deal. And so she brought a lot of joy to the client, because who doesn't want to go and run around the exhibits in the Science Museum with a little kid? And they had the meeting, and also her son Max gets to see, this is mummy. Mummy isn't only the person that cooks you dinner and picks you up from school. She's also this incredible businesswoman, and she's all of these things together. And so he gets this wonderful role model and gets to see her at work, as well as being a wonderful mum. And I really admire her. She's got such an incredibly positive attitude to what other people might see as a deal breaker. Other people might just say, oh no, I can't go on the trip. And she's so innovative, and she's like, well, let's make the trip fun for everyone involved. I
Yeah,
just
well,
think
I
that's
think
really cool.
yeah, no, and I think this goes back to like the idea of experience and like and really like, kind of blending these experiences together and like, people say like you should find joy in your work and your work should be joyful and whatever. And so I think like that's, as you said, it's just it's so great to be able to have that sort of work life blend, but then like also exposing her child to like, she obviously enjoys what she's doing. And I think it's great for him to see that, like, like it doesn't have to, I think it doesn't have to not be fun. It doesn't have to be work. Like
That's
I
right.
feel like, my generation, like, most generations, like, we grow up with this idea that like we essentially we go to school to work and get jobs and to sort of like jump into this like corporate lifestyle. Like that's the goal. Like that's what
Mm.
defines success, is how successful you are at the work you do. And I think like now, like especially, after the pandemic, it's like it's definitely starting to change like what that meaning actually is, like what the meaning of success is.
Yes, definitely. And that is such a key theme in my book. So this idea of defining success. So one of the people that I spoke to who's early on in the book is a painter who, David McAdam Freud, he's one of Lucy and Freud's sons. And he says his success to him is being able to create something artistically without having to worry about what the client's going to say, without having to think, is this going to make me any money? And I know realistically, a lot of us don't have that luxury, but that is what art should be. Art to me should not be, oh, you need to paint this in this way because this is who's paying for it. And ultimately, that is what it's always been throughout history, where I remember studying art history in school and learning and kind of being horrified as a teenager, and probably still quite horrified now, that people would pay more to get themselves painted closer to the saints in the in the paintings, because they thought they were buying their place in heaven, and that they would get themselves painted with certain imagery that represented wealth and luxury and status and everything. In the same way as I guess now people might have their selfie with the, whatever it
With a
represents,
celebrity, yeah.
yeah, in the background, which I probably haven't done very well here. And we've always done it. So it's not even a new idea, having a selfie with everything around you, because people used to do this hundreds of years ago, get themselves painted with all of these objects and things around them. And that was their definition of success. And the poor painters, who are incredibly talented, had to paint what they were told by the people that had the most money. Being able to break free from that in itself, what a wonderful mark of success, being able to paint what you want and draw what you want. That could be defined as success. Or being able to use that talent to make an income, or to make yourself rich, or to make enough to give lots of money to a charity you really believe in. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like not just success, but that feeling of fulfillment.
Yes,
Like for sure. Cause I think like that's really what we're starting to like learn as a collective, is our success fulfilling, or like are we like is our fulfillment successful, and how do you like what do those things mean actually, like in the grand scheme of things?
absolutely. And I think there's this other piece about reaching our potential. And often that's when we get into the coaching side of things, where what stops us from reaching our potential? People will tell me that they don't have enough time or they don't have enough money. And maybe that's true. But in reality, it's nearly always that we get in our own way. It's nearly always about confidence or fear, or not wanting to step outside of our comfort zone, wanting to keep ourselves safe. And there's a lot of that in the book, coming from all different angles. I interviewed so many experts so there's a multitude of different opinions and different perspectives. And you take what you want from the book. You don't have to take everything as the law. There is one lawyer in there, but she actually talks about how to have difficult conversations and the techniques behind that. So it's a book that you can really dive into and take out, well, here's 10 different people's versions of success. And one of them might resonate with me. Well, what do they have to say about it? And what can I take from that person? And I think that's really nice. And for me, obviously I learned quite a lot going around and having these conversations as you're doing here, right? My book was the equivalent of this for me.
Yeah, I mean that's perfect. I love it. And also just I mean, I feel like you didn't just learn this like having the conversations, but you also like because you kind of went through this on your own, like as well. Like this that was your journey. So let's talk about that a little bit. There is a certain sense of security that comes with working a corporate job, and you
Yeah.
were largely successful at it, as we've talked about already. But why did you choose to leave and go freelance? What was that like break for you that you needed to like? I mean, obviously, like you know, like you wanted to come back home and all that, but like, you know, what really cemented it for you that you wanted to leave that lifestyle?
Yeah. There was a couple of things that happened at the same time. So one thing that happened for me was that I kept I kept trying to I started doing PR because I worked in a big insurance company, and I got onto their graduate training scheme. And so I ended up doing some financial exams, which if I say that, if some people who know me would see this and just absolutely laugh themselves, so they would just find it so hilarious because I'm known for not really being great with figures or planning. Anyway, that's an aside. But I used to work in finance and I did do financial planning exams at one stage in my career. And then because it's actually quite hard to find good people who do financial PR, it's very specialized. I got put in this box, and however hard I tried to shake it off, I'd go for an interview and I'd say, "Oh, this is amazing. You're promoting." I didn't even know. Maybe I'd go for an interview for an agency and they would be working with food or children's toys or any kind of thing. And then they'd be like, "Oh, you did financial PR. We're just about to pitch for a client who with finance," and they would put me back in financial PR again. Like wherever I went, I would get squeezed. Somebody would find a client for me to work on that was finance. And it was kind of like I just couldn't shake it off, however hard I tried. And so I think there's something for me about being able to steer my own ship a bit and have a bit of control over what I choose to work on. And at the same time, with the whole financial PR background, then in 2008, there was obviously what we affectionately called the credit crunch, which makes it sound a lot sort of cuddlier than what it was. We had this horrible financial crash, and working in financial PR at that stage wasn't great. My clients were putting, this was when I was working in an agency, my clients were putting they were freezing their accounts and with us and pausing the PR activity. And we tried to dig ourselves out of it, but there was a bit of a last in, first out situation, and a bunch of us got made redundant, and I was one of those people. And that's obviously a horrible experience for anyone. And I was a bit of a determined kind of and probably relatively unhappy young woman at that stage. I think I was in my late 20s. And I kind of had this determination where I said to myself, I don't want anyone to be able to ever do that to me again. It was a bit kind of like self-protection. So for me, going freelance in the first place was self-protection against ever being laid off, because it would always be my choice. So it's kind of the opposite. Most people would think that maybe freelance wasn't secure and a corporate job was. But for me, just being told, "Oh, you're going to have to leave," I just thought, I never want that to happen to me again. So I'll secure my own career.
Well, and this kind of goes into my next question, because you know we talked about lockdown and this experience that I know we talked about during pandemic how we were going to go into another recession. I like you called it the credit crunch, but here in the United States we called it the Great Recession.
Yeah.
2008, like it was very similar. And because of lockdown, like the economy had to stop, like
Yes.
not just certain sectors, but the economy as a whole essentially like had to stop. And
Yeah.
so like I feel like we can't talk about pandemic without talking about just this idea of like the gig economy and just global upheaval, because going through what we did, like everything that was certain, like all these corporate jobs, like the mass layoffs, like all those things, like those things that we would normally find security in were no longer secure
Yeah.
because they couldn't exist. Like the world is not functioning.
Yes.
And so now this uncertainty, this gig economy that most people, I think like a lot of people look down on it because it's not secure, because like you're relying on the whims of people to pay, like to
Mhm.
look for your services. But like it actually became like a means of survival for a lot of people, because like there was nothing else they could do.
Yes. And so for me with coaching, when COVID, when the lockdown happened around this time last year, I think a lot of coaching is that we can reflect our own energy and mood. We can reflect that on our clients without even being aware of it. And there was definitely like a mirroring effect between how I reacted and then what happened next. So I had to fly, but I was in Texas, and I had my flight got cancelled, and then one of the airlines, I had a few different flights to connect to get home, and one of the airlines actually went bust. So I couldn't even rebook, and the holiday company were being really frustrating and sending me saying that I'd got a flight and then it would be cancelled again before I'd even had a chance to kind of catch up with the emails. I'd go to sleep and wake up and I'd have, you've got a flight, it's been cancelled, we're rebooking you, it's been and that happened 4 times. And in the end I just couldn't. And then I came back and I landed at Heathrow, and immediately as I landed, the phone went, and it was my sister saying, don't panic, but our youngest brother's got cancer and he's having an operation tomorrow and it's really serious. And I was just like, I can't even explain how I felt. I don't know how I even felt. And I'd literally just, it gets, I was going to say it gets worse. I mean, that was the worst part, but it gets kind of more weirdly entertaining in a minute. So that was awful. Obviously, he's okay. He's been through hell and back, but he's okay. So I'd had all these flights cancelled. I'd come back, found out this awful family news. And just then when that happened, I'd arranged to move house so that I wasn't still living with my ex-husband. That fell through because of the pandemic. The people who I was letting, who were moving out, they weren't moving out anymore because they were going on tour with a band, and the tour got cancelled. So then I couldn't move. So then I was in lockdown with my ex-husband. Oh. That was like real, like the bad news hit me in the heart, but then having to be in lockdown with my ex-husband, not just for me, but for him as well, having to be in lockdown with his ex-wife, it's not great. It's just not great. But we still owned the house together. He had been living in London for work. He didn't need to be in London anymore because COVID. I can work from anywhere. So that happened, that we ended up being in the same space together, and all these emotions and all these things happening as well. So that was kind of the background to it. And then a big contract that I had, which was a training contract, that was face-to-face training. So that got cancelled as well. So it was like, boom, boom, boom. It's like really bad stuff in your family. The place you're going to live isn't possible. And you're back with your ex-husband, like not literally, but you're in the living space with your ex-husband. You're eating 3 meals a day together again and playing Scrabble because there's nothing else to do. And your training contract just got cancelled. And I was like, I need a minute. I need a minute. So that was March. And then I think that it does get, I don't know if mirrored is the right word, but like reflected. So our energy can be reflected and mirrored back to us from our clients. And I was really aware of that. And so there were a couple of weeks where my clients were saying, I want to put my coaching on pause, or I want to take stock of things. I don't know if I can afford it. And after a couple of weeks, I just contacted them and I was kind of like, guys, some people are going to win and some people are going to lose out of this, business wise and financially. Yes, we don't know how many people are going to become unwell. We need to look after ourselves and our families. That has to come first. But business wise, if you stop now, and a lot of things I coach people around is confidence and marketing and self-promotion and all of the stuff that we need to sustain ourselves, and mindset, and just, can I swear? Just keeping your shit together when things are not going great. And I was like, look, are you with me or you're not with me? Come on, we're going to do this and we're going to come out the other side of it and it's going to be okay. But if you tell me that you don't want me to coach you during this time, in fact, I can't think of a better time to have a coach than now. Like, you need me, guys. And then my clients went up. I got completely booked out. I started doing group coaching. I won more overseas clients. And then this started getting reflected. So one woman that I've been working with for a couple of years, actually, and she's just grown and grown and grown. She texted me this week and she said, you know, my 10K turnover target for this month, I just hit 40K. And that's in pounds, you know, so that's even more than if it was in dollars. And we're kind of like, there are people thriving who are working really hard and homeschooling and navigating all the anxiety that we've got and seeing the opportunities and looking after their families, keeping themselves safe and still thriving. And it's really, really, really hard. And to do that, yes, you need an anchor. So I kind of saw that as my role, to be that anchor for those people.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, because like, I mean, as you said, like, I mean, your life and like just everyone's life got really thrown into like a loop. Like it was just chaos. It was just
Yeah.
mass chaos. Like this is basically what it was. And so I think it was like, and I know like it's hard for some people to quantify, but it's good to have like someone who seems like they have their shit together, at least, like to be able to, anchor you, and to be able to say like, no, like it's okay. Like you've
Yes,
got
very much.
this.
Absolutely. And so what I did in the last 12 months, I found myself a new coach, and I now have coaching. So Gillian, she's in the same group as us, Invisible AF. I have coaching with Gillian 3 times a month. So I massively upped. I was like, I need to be anchored. If I'm going to anchor all these people in this very, like, there's not even any words for how difficult the last 12 months have been for everybody. I can't even say in this very difficult time. That's like massive understatement. If I'm going to anchor these people, I need to be anchored. And so without meaning any disrespect to my ex, I got myself the hell out of there. That was the first. So I texted my female friends. I have a nice little group here locally, and I just SOS'd them and said, come on, someone's got a place that I can live. And sure enough, one of my friends had a holiday let, which was completely empty, with a massive garden with wild rabbits running around. It was beautiful. So I lived there for the summer, and that gave me the opportunity to find a place that was more permanent. So yeah, I got myself out of there, got some fresh air and some bunnies and some sunlight, and it wasn't that terrible once the dust had settled from the panic initially. I can swim in the river, I can walk in the sunshine. And however horrible some of the things that we've all experienced have been, it's like you look up at this sounds really cheesy, but you look up at the sky and it's like, we're still here, And so that being outdoors is a very, very simple example, and having a routine. And I started meditating. I kind of hate myself for that. I always said I would never be that person, but I meditate every day now.
I think that's great, because it's like, I mean, like I agree, like it sounds very like woo woo, like cheesy, like people like, oh my god, like you're just another one of those, but it's like, no, it really like is excuse me.
It's okay.
No, I'm just breathing and talking and not like
I'm glad
okay.
it's not just
Woo,
me that does that.
I got excited there. uh it's like, okay, let's try this again. It's so important, like, especially now that we are, as we said, we're kind of having to reevaluate our spaces and what our spaces mean, like to have that moment to connect with yourself.
Yes,
And
yes.
I've talked about this with multiple guests, actually, like just taking that sort of like moment to check in with yourself, and like and figure out what your center is, what your balance is, what, are you actually feeling, what are you feeling? Are you feeling sad? Like what, like is there something that is like that doesn't feel right? Like can you change it? Do you need to change it? What do you do to change it? Do you need to add something? Do you need to take something away? Like, like asking yourself those questions, which I think like, I know like meditation is supposed to be about like, or like they say like you're supposed to clear your mind or whatever, but it's not so much about, at least like this is the way I see meditation. It's like it's not so much about just like going blank. It's about like giving yourself the mental space to ask
Yes.
those questions of yourself.
To be present, to literally be in the moment, and to feel your feelings and to feel your body. Absolutely.
Yeah. But so what does coaching with you look like? Because we've talked about this, and I feel like we haven't actually like said like what do you coach? Like what do people come to you for?
Great question. And it's such an abstract thing to explain, but I'm going to try, and I'm really glad that you've asked me. So thinking about how you feel in your body, that's always one of the first sort of invitations that I give my clients in a coaching session. And I used to coach face to face all the time. And I had access to a beautiful studio down the road here in Hay, and I had access to a lovely coaching space in London. And now, of course, and I also used to coach people up at their farms and anywhere really that would have me. And I am a very interactive kind of tactile person. You know, I've coached with babies on my lap and people's dogs, and on, as I say, on farms with cows around and all sorts of different things. But then we're reduced to this. I'm like, how do I connect with people? So the check-in at the beginning of my Zoom coaching, as it now is for everybody, is, how do you feel? What's your energy and mood like? Do you want to do a check-in with your body and see how that feels today? And I do say to people, especially if they're new, I say, look, you can just do this in your head. You don't have to tell me, but almost everybody will tell me. They'll tell me if something hurts, and then they might tell me why it hurts. And then already we know where we're starting from. So that often reveals a lot. Somebody might tell me that they haven't slept that well, or that they've got menstrual cramps, or that, you know, whatever. And then a lot of people will say at the beginning, they'll say, I feel excited. And I love that. The idea that someone's bought my coaching and they're excited by it, is such a great start for me, because I want to have fun and enjoyment. And most people sign up for my coaching who are creative and use their creativity in their job. And they usually want to change something, which is to get more time back, to improve that balance or that work-life blend that we talked about. Maybe to unlock more creativity. They might feel stuck in that respect. They might want more money. A lot of them want more money, and that's completely okay. And I'm there for that. And this happens, and it's so good. Or a career change. I wish I could tell you this amazing one, but I need to ask their permission. But I just had the most exciting career change story. Like, literally someone writing on a post-it what they wanted, and then 3 weeks later holding the post-it up and saying, I have it. I have it now. We do vision boards. We talk about what people truly desire. We definitely talk about what's getting in their way. And there's lots of tools and techniques I can use. You know, I can send people worksheets and I can send them diagrams. But at the end of the day, I work with people, how people feel today and how they want to feel. And then we work out the steps to get there, to change those feelings. And so if somebody comes to me and they're feeling anxious and uncreative and underconfident and all of those things, as a lot of us did over the last year for all sorts of different reasons, we work with that. And I don't really teach anything. I don't teach strategy. I can answer questions about my 20 years in PR. I could tell somebody how to become more visible, but they've got to want it. And that's really what the book is about. It's like, what do you want? And if you don't want what you've got right now, if that's not working for you, let's get you on the path to getting what you do want, because then there's that congruence and that authenticity, and it just starts to feel real. So that's kind of what I coach. Sometimes people cry. Sometimes, a lot of the time, they laugh. Sometimes they tell me that they feel incredibly angry. Not with me so far, but you know, they might do. As I say, I've done vision board workshops. I did at Christmas, those weird days in between Christmas and New Year. I did a whole day with everyone in their pajamas, and we all had something that we wanted to achieve by the end of the day. So I had one woman was tidying up her kids' playroom, and somebody else was writing their entire marketing strategy for 12 months. And we were just on Zoom the whole day, checking in our pajamas. It was so fun. It was super fun. And also I got clients out of that. And that was just a free thing I ran. But I like to have fun with people and then bring them into my community and work with them in different ways. It's super nice.
That's amazing. I love that. I want to just like touch on this because you brought up the word authenticity, and I think that's a huge like just cornerstone of all of this is like, you know, just what does it mean to be authentic in what you're doing, how you're feeling, you know, just like how you're living right now. And I think like that's a huge thing that I think we all not need to, but like that we're all kind of like experiencing right now is learning what that authenticity means.
Yes, and I think it is a word that it gets spoken a lot, and it can sound, ironically, it can sound inauthentic if people just keep using it. And there's words, you know, there's other words that get used a lot, like values, like diversity. And we do see, and I do think that the big corporates are responsible for this in a negative way of just whacking these titles and buzzwords on their website. Oh yes, we're we're all about diversity, we're all about authenticity, we're all about, are you really?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's, if it doesn't feel uncomfortable, you're probably not doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And when we talk about values in coaching, then values values can mean two things, and they can mean these at the same time. They can mean what needs to be present in order for me to be happy and fulfilled, and they can also be unmet needs. And when someone first explained that to me, I was like, that's a head fuck. So, you know, my values, if somebody comes to me and they say, trust is a really important value to me, they're giving me a signal that somewhere along the line, someone has really badly abused their trust, probably. And I might not bring that out on the table on day one, because for obvious reasons, if someone's abused their trust, I'm not going to be like, so tell me about that. You know, maybe on the third session, we might start to speak about it and say, look, this value of trust, what does trust mean to you? And why is it so important? And underneath that, there's going to be a story. And that's the hard work that we do in coaching, is confronting those things that where we feel real discomfort, and being able to work out a path forwards to move past them.
Mm-hmm.
And that can feel physically uncomfortable, and it can be distressing. And I'm not a therapist, and I don't encourage people to work in a way that is going to make them feel unsafe. So we're very respectful towards, you know, what feels okay. But actually, if we can, I almost say to people sometimes, it's like, if you're sitting down in the well, I'm going to come and sit down in the well with you, and we'll have the conversation down there, and then we'll climb out together. So I
Yeah.
sit with people in that space.
I love that. I think that's truly amazing. I'm curious, like what was the biggest benefit to you in your lifestyle when you went into this like freelance coaching world? Like again, like kind of going back to you leaving that sort of conventionally successful PR,
Yeah.
business badass woman like life that
Yeah.
you had. Like what was the biggest thing for you that I think like really shifted when you decided to change everything?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very distinct change, because I did used to have, it's funny with PR, because the wages or the rates are not always that high. They can be, but they're not always. But you do almost always get a ticket to a very glamorous life. So you might not, at first, you might not be getting paid that much, but yes, you get to go on the red carpet, or maybe you get to work behind the scenes at the red carpet events, and you get I keep going on about cocktails, I must be missing them, but you get the cocktails and the champagne, and you get to dress up all the time. You can dress up every day if you want to, and you get to be the most fun person at the party and the most fun person at the meeting. And that's not really coaching. Coaching is very different from that. And I'm not saying, yes, we have fun, but it's not about red carpets and high heels and champagne, at least not most of the time. And so then if that's not present, how do we, it is going back, I can't help keeping going back to authenticity. How do we represent ourselves? And of course, yeah, I could choose to be a coach. I could choose to be the champagne and high heels and red carpet coach, but is that really me, or was I doing that because that was my clients? And so first off, I had to check in with myself, and it took a while. I was like, I used to go to London and pretend I didn't live in Wales. I don't know why, because I love Wales. I absolutely adore it. But I thought maybe people wouldn't take me so seriously for what this is, like absolute my own bullshit that I needed to get past. But I used to go to London, and I'd kind of like wake up, and the sun wouldn't be up yet, and I'd put wellies on to walk to the end of the lane to get to the bus in the place that I live to go and this is even before I moved to Wales, actually, when I started living just outside of London. And it was kind of like living in the country, whether that's on the outskirts of London or whether that's in Wales or whatever. It's nothing to like, it's not wrong. It's actually really lovely and beautiful. And so I used to have this kind of like double life where I'd sometimes get the train from Wales to London at 5 o'clock in the morning so that I would be there for a breakfast meeting. And I was so tired, and I'd put my London clothes on, and I'd probably start to speak slightly differently as well. I'd probably had a London voice, And so checking in with myself about that authenticity, I was just like, Helen, what the hell are you doing? This is ridiculous, and you're tired all the time. So I started telling my story about where I lived and what what the food's like, what the people are like, why things are so clean here, or why the bread costs £5 or whatever it happened to be, because it was made from organic flour and all of these things. And just really being excited about what was around me. And then as I started to trust myself a bit better and to try and live that truth, I then started talking about the really difficult stuff, which is diversity and sexuality and all the other things that I'd never really spoken about before as well. And that was the hard part for me, was practicing what I preach, and actually starting to literally come out in every sense of the word with my clients as my audience, and me writing these blogs and being like, actually, I need to talk about sexuality. And then one of my clients came out a few weeks later, and I was just like, whoa, this is incredible. It's very permission giving to be authentic and for your clients to see that. But I had to wait till I was ready. And that's something else that I think when we're marketing ourselves as coaches, then it's not about just putting your trauma out there. Like, it's never about that. We have to be ready to tell our story. And I know, as a creator, you're very brave about telling your story and about talking about what's important to you. But that we have to be ready to tell those stories. And I didn't feel ready before. And I think all of the glitz and glamour it suited me. It was something to hide behind, and it was fun.
Yeah. No, like I love that. I love that sort of like that kind of bring around that you experience, and that you like, and I love that. I think that that's such a great thing to be able to take away from your entire experience and your entire story, and how you're building your life now. I think that's so great. How do tell us how to like get a hold of your book, how to get a hold of you, how do we learn more, or all the things.
Amazing. Thank you. So in the book, you're going to meet so many inspiring people. You're going to meet singers and artists and psychologists and yoga practitioners and digital nomads and people in love with each other. And just, you're going to meet all these people. And so it's a business book, but it's a business book told through the stories and souls of so many beautiful and inspiring individuals. And so that's the first thing. It's just like, go on a journey with these people. They're incredible. And I interviewed them all and I loved it. And the book is available on Business Expert Press. And if you're in the US, probably going on the Business Expert Press website is the best place to go. If you are in the UK or Europe, this is really mean. You can get 20% off if you're in the UK or Europe, and I know you're not. I'm sorry, but I have sent you a copy. So if you use the code Campbell 20, which is CAMPBELL 20, then you get 20% off on Eurospan, but you have to be in the UK or Europe. And what else can I tell you? I made a beer to promote. If you live in my town, I made a beer to promote the book, because the pubs are shut, the bars are shut, the bookshops are shut, and I wanted to have some fun. So I've made a beer with a local brewery called Lucky 7. I used to work in the beer industry, so this was fun for me. So the book is called Founders, Freelancers and Rebels. And you can get a beer locally called Founders, Freelancers and Rebels for the next few weeks. And I want it to be like a conversation. If people read it and they get inspired, or if they have questions, I want to keep the dialogue going. My business is called Coaching by Helen. And Helen Jane Campbell is like, if you put that in, I think there might be like one other Helen Jane Campbell, but I tend to come up pretty high in the Google searches. So yeah, I want to speak to people about it on my Instagram, on my Facebook group, on Twitter. I'm really keen to know what people think.
Yeah, no, like that's perfect. I'll have all the links in the show notes and everything as well. So like that's great. Before we go, what is one thing or a couple things that you want people to know about making this decision to pursue freelance, if that's something they want to do? Is it for everyone?
I think you've got to want it. You've got to want it, and you do have to be prepared to market yourself, or pay somebody else to do it. So if that's not your thing, it might not be for you. But I think anyone I love it when creative people find that they can make a living and feel fulfilled and be happy through pursuing their creative art, rather than having to see that as something that they squeeze into spare moments. So if you want that to be your main thing, Find yourself an anchor person who can hold the space for you, whether that's a coach like me or a great friend or a therapist or whatever you need. Find an anchor, find a way of marketing yourself or someone that will do it for you, and just enjoy it. Get out of bed every day and tell yourself that this is what you were born to do, and you deserve it, and you're allowed to enjoy your work, and you're allowed to enjoy your talents, and you're allowed to make money from your talents.
I love it. Well, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. This was honestly like this got my day started off like so well. Like I'm so excited. But yeah, thank you so much. I
It's an
know like
absolute
it's evening. I
pleasure.
saw the sun go down behind.
Pardon, what did you say?
Like it's evening. It's evening on your side now. I literally
I
watched the
know,
sun
you've
go
seen
down
the light
behind.
go down. Yeah, I'm gonna go and have some food and maybe a little glass of wine. So lovely to meet you. I've really enjoyed both this conversation and when we were talking the other day as well before. So stay in touch and I will speak to you soon. Lots of
Yeah,
love.
definitely. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Helen. This was such a great conversation, very enlightening, just a lot of fun. She's just an amazing person, isn't she? So if you want to know more about her book or her coaching, I will have all of that information linked down below in the captions or in the show notes and also on my social feed. So please check back there. And with that, thank you so much for coming for another week of Afternoon Equality. And I can't wait to sit with you again next week. Cheers.